And we're live. The destination could not be started. Cool. That's all right. That's all right. We are here. Super excited. Hi, everybody, internet folks, people that are out there in the world. I've got Stu Swineford here with me. As you might remember, I had him on the podcast, on the Nonprofit Digital Success podcast, maybe about a year ago. And he and I just kind of like happened to be in the same group last week. Or was it the week before?
It was
And
a couple of weeks ago, yeah.
yeah, and we were like, "Hey, how's it going?" And we were like, "Oh, okay, cool." So we hopped on a quick call and we were just like kind of shooting the breeze and chatting a bit. And then he said, "Let me show you something." We were talking about AI a little bit, and he was like, "I got to show you this thing." So tell us what is this thing?
The thing, the infamous thing. So we started looking into AI when it got buzzy last year, year before last, and really started leveraging it fairly quickly to help us with ideation, particularly with kind of brainstorming things, seeing things from different perspectives. AI is really a regurgitative tool. It's not going to do any thinking for you necessarily, but it can provide some additional insights. And as my business partner Brett and I started talking about this, he got this wild idea to build this tool out that enables people to create profiles. So if you're working on your own brand, or if you're working on a variety of brands, you can set up profiles for those brands, set up either services or products that are related or attached to those brands, and then run a bunch of conceived or pre-baked chat GPT scripts against those profiles, and just get some ideation and get some momentum in your marketing. And so at this point, we've developed this tool that we call the Online Brand Manager. It's onlinebrandmanager.com. If you want to go take a peek, there's some free resources there, as well as you can sign up if you'd like. But it's essentially this tool that lets you kind of get some momentum, get some traction on your ideation around marketing. So whether that's developing values, vision, mission statements, or coming up with some ideas around blog posts, or just seeing what other things you might be missing in the marketing hourglass. This allows you to run those types of scripts, those types of recipes, I guess, against your own brands that you've set up.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important for anybody that's watching this, whether it's now or later on, catching the replay or whatever. But um, it's important. Like nonprofits, we need or you need to be thinking about your brand, and your brand isn't just your logo, right? Your brand is your tone, your message, what you stand for, who you help, your colors, right?
Yeah.
Your sentiment that you're creating, the constituents you're helping. What does that mean to you when you think of nonprofits and brands?
What does that mean to me? Great question. I think that we all need to, like you said, develop that voice, and also get some momentum in ideation around what to talk about. I think that consistency in messaging and content creation is one of the things that we really think is important in one's marketing. It not only helps reinforce the relationships that you're building with your marketing, but it also helps with the Google algorithm and all sorts of other things. LinkedIn, every channel that you're on has some sort of rules that it's playing against to decide whether or not to show your brand to your target audience. And if you can get consistency in there, in particularly in your content creation, that is, from what we can tell, very helpful. Most of these organizations are fairly quiet about what their algorithms actually are doing. However, we know a few things, and content creation is uh, among the important metrics that those channels, whether they be social channels or search engines, are looking for. And this tool or AI can help you with ideation. A lot of times we get kind of blank page syndrome where we don't know what to talk about, so we talk about nothing. One of the things that we're trying to help with, and what I think AI does a good job of helping with, is helping create a bit of a roadmap that helps you get started with your content creation. I would be, you know, it would be bad if I didn't mention that there are a lot of people out there creating content whole cloth from AI and from ChatGPT and other kind of learning mechanisms. Um, I would recommend highly against doing that, like basically telling these systems to spit you out a full blog post that you don't then go and modify to adopt your own tone and make sure that it's accurate and aligned with your thinking, as well as just changing it up so it becomes more real world messaging as opposed to something that was created by a bot. But I do believe that these tools are very helpful in the ideation process in terms of if you're struggling to come up with blog topics. These tools can be very, very helpful in helping you see some opportunities and start to generate some ideas.
Yeah, I mean, AI is certainly this past year blown up huge with ChatGPT. I think I'm understating that by a significant amount. Um, like at my agency and with some of our clients, we use AI, right? We don't shy away from it. We've been using AI, different tools and platforms for about 3 years now. Um, and yeah, it's an awesome tool for brainstorming, right? You can teach it things with ChatGPT, right? You can say, okay, this is who we are. This is who we want to connect with. These are the people that are kind of like our ideal donors. Here are the people that we help. Create. So if you're watching this, I've got this board on the wall behind me. This was done by us humans, not AI. But you could say create a content calendar for me for the year,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can then, when it comes time to write that article, you can go, okay, what are some ideas for this article? And you can generate some of that. And you can use it in that kind of way very, very successfully. But there's, and I don't have any evidence of this, but I really do believe that Google has in their algorithm some kind of bot checking AI thing to go, okay, this is maybe like 60% AI generated or 80% versus human, right? The way we talk and say things is a little bit different in reality, maybe a little bit of slang like gonna instead of got to. I hate when I use my phone and I do voice to text and it does gonna instead of got to. I always correct that, but there are AI platforms to detect whether something was written with AI,
Yeah.
right? So I
Yeah.
really do believe that there is a really great use for AI, but it's not like one size fits all.
Yeah. And I think that the search engines, and when we say search engines, we really mean Google by by most standards. They're the elephant in the room in this regard. I believe that if they don't have these capabilities now, that they're actively working on these capabilities. And that's another reason why I recommend being cautious about how much you use in terms of AI. You can ask ChatGPT to write a 3,000 word blog post about some topic, and you can tell it to act like a marketing specialist, and you can tell it give it examples of tone of voice and all sorts of things. So there are ways to leverage this technology to create material whole cloth. I again caution against that, because I think if those checks that you just mentioned, David, are not in place today, I believe very strongly that they will be in place at some point. And so if you go out and have AI generate 300 blog posts and put them up on your site, you may find benefit in that in the short term, but in the longer term, my guess is that there will be some challenges around that material. So whenever you're using these tools, I would recommend making sure that you consider very strongly how you're using them and leverage them up to the point where you then, as a human, or your team as a human, takes over and leverages that ideation for for traction and for advancement. However, make sure that you're authoring things yourself would be my best recommendation around the use of the tool.
Exactly. So you can have it write a paragraph, or you can take a paragraph that you've written, put it in, and ask it to maybe change the tone,
Hmm.
or to help rewrite it, make it more friendly or whatnot. But that's taking your original idea, your original thoughts, and turning it into something
Hmm.
that is slightly tweaked or edited versus asking it to produce something, right? One of the things that is certainly out there in the conversations that are happening around AI is that it doesn't really create anything new, or at least not yet. It's not sentient, right? So, yet, anyways.
Yeah.
So it's just creating stuff based off other things that it's learned, whether it's accurate or inaccurate, right? There's
Yeah.
a lot of, what was it? I think a couple of weeks ago, I read some article. I don't know, early on in the days of AI, they were looking at it in terms of being able to detect like diseases, right? So looking at an X-ray and really kind of identifying, or MRI scans or whatever, and identifying whatever the illness is, or whatnot. And it had like a really high rating. I read some article that it's only about like 30% accurate now. So I don't know if the creators have like dumbed it down in some way so that people wouldn't like try to use this to like medically help themselves possibly. But like when we think about it, it's only as smart as the information that it's learning. And if the
Hmm.
information that it's learning from is flawed or isn't necessarily accurate, it might just make up some stuff. I remember playing with AI, with ChatGPT specifically, like a year ago, when it just kind of started like blowing up. And I said, write an article about this. And it gave me a bunch of stats and facts and figures and whatever to kind of like back it up. I went into Google and I just took one of the stats. I put it in quotes. So this is one of those things, right? You put something in Google in quotes, it's going to look for that exact thing, right?
Yep.
So I took one of the stats, I put it in. It couldn't find a resource for it. It couldn't prove it to me. And it actually made up some university that like never existed, citing it
Yep.
as a source, right? So yeah, you got to be careful.
Yeah, we use it for, like I said, a lot of ideation. So maybe blog post titles, social media, a 30-day social media calendar, for example, which would give you an idea of like what to post about around a specific topic, um, and outlines for longer content. That certainly I think is pretty safe. The other thing that I like about it is sourcing ideas from a variety of different sources. So, I know that I have my, my blinders on, so to speak, when it comes to how I view the world. For example, I'm currently sitting in front of a window and I'm looking out that window and I see this view. And I know that if I were over to the right here looking, that way, that I would see a completely different view. And that's one of the things that's really nice about GPT is that it can produce ideas that give you that ability to just kind of get another set of eyeballs on something. So we like to talk about the marketing hourglass, which is the kind of buyer's life cycle that they go through when they're engaging with your organization. So a donor could be a buyer, a volunteer could be a buyer, et cetera. You may have products that you sell; those are certainly ripe for buying. And so people typically go through a know, like, trust. So those are functions of marketing where they get to know you, get to like you on some level, and then start to trust you. Then they move into a sales or an engagement opportunity where they get to try your organization out in some capacity and buy from them. So in the nonprofit world, that could be downloading some sort of a resource and then deciding that they want to become a donor. And then they move into the repeat and refer phases. So those are kind of post sales opportunities where you can get people to donate again, become a monthly donor, um, or refer people. So write a review about your organization or refer some of their friends or their colleagues or whomever else to your organization. And that becomes that whole buyer's life cycle. Now, I have the tricks of the trade that I have leveraged over and over in each of those phases. However, I'm just one person. My team is just one team. There are plenty of other ways to view each of those phases, and so a lot of times we'll use GPT to go out and essentially access a knowledge base of other marketers to give us some additional insights as to how a particular organization might show up more effectively in that like phase. What we could do from a marketing standpoint to help reinforce that phase of that buyer's life cycle. And I think that GPT is a great resource for that kind of ideation and that kind of research. And then you can apply it however you see fit.
Absolutely. So let's talk about this. Pardon me. Let's talk about this platform
Sure.
that you've put together. I
Yeah.
know you're like a little bit nervous about showing it because it's like maybe an alpha or something right now, right? But let's talk about this a bit and how maybe nonprofits could leverage something like this, whether it's your tool or they try something different. I think um, I believe that most nonprofits are probably about a decade behind in the use of integrating new tech and stuff. So um, I would love if that wasn't the case because they're the ones that really need the help and support and leveraging tools like Stu's. I mean, we only looked at it like for maybe a minute when we connected the other
Sure.
day, but and I was like, all right, let's just stop and just do this live and just be like super organic with this. So yeah, let's talk about that.
Sure. Let me see if I can get my share screen to work. That might be the best way to handle this. Hold on just a second.
All right. While you're doing that, I'm going to see
Ah,
how I might be able to make you full
and of,
screen on this thing.
and of course I cannot because I'm on Firefox and it requires Google Chrome. So
Oh no.
we'll share a link with you. I'll say that link one more time. It's onlinebrandmanager.com. Essentially, the way that nonprofits could leverage this particular tool is to either sign up once we get a paid version going, or just leverage some of the free resources that we have available, and set up a profile. So essentially you would then put in a bunch of information about your nonprofit. The thing that's nice about this tool is it allows you to set up multiple brands. So you could have, if you're an organization that works with nonprofits, you could set up a different brand for each of the nonprofits that you work with. If you're a nonprofit that has kind of a secondary uh, brand that you're running, it would enable you to set up multiple instances of the source material, and then underneath that brand, it actually allows you to set up multiple services or products. So this is where a nonprofit could set up, for example, a donor profile. So like maybe the thing that they're soliciting is donations, maybe the thing they're soliciting is volunteers. You could set up, you know, merch if you sell merch, for example. All of those different things could then become individual products that you can then run these scripts from GPT against those pre-built and saved configurations. So what's nice about this is you don't have to go in. So if you were just using Chat GPT, you would have to reset those things up, re-educate the tool, the GPT tool, to understand where you're coming from, what tone of voice you want to use, etc. Our system allows you to set up and configure those instances and then run multiple ideations against them. And then we have about 30, I think, pre-built mechanisms that you can run that are essentially scripts that we've created for GPT that then reference the organization and the products that you've set up, and then runs these scripts against those. The scripts themselves are editable. So if you don't like the output, you can actually go in and kind of change the scripts and save your own custom scripts, which is kind of nice. And it also lets you export all of the information that has been created. So, for example, if you go in and say, create a 30-day social media plan for nonprofit nonprofit organization one against this particular service. So maybe you're a trail building organization. So you say, okay, we want to run a social campaign to solicit donations for a trail building organization. You've set up your organization, you've set up your product within that organization, and then you just essentially click a couple of buttons to get the system to go out to GPT, generate a 30-day social media calendar, and then you can export that to either a text file, or you can copy and paste it, and then leverage that to kind of build your social calendar around the the system's recommendations. So it allows you to create personas. So if you're having a hard time trying to figure out who your target audience is, we have scripts that will help ideation around persona creation. We have scripts that will help with blog post creation in terms of coming up with titles and outlines. I believe Brett probably put in create an entire blog post in there. Again, I would recommend if you do have the system, whether that's GPT or our system, crank out a whole blog post. I would recommend doing some fairly heavy editing on that post, but we're basically trying to help people get a little bit farther down the road a lot more quickly so that they can be more effective in their marketing.
I think that's one of the big functions that I think of with AI is being able to save time to kind of we jokingly at my agency say like ChatGPT is our best employee. It's really versatile in terms of what you can do with it and how you can leverage it, because you can go from marketing into sales into um, I just have like a really curt email and I don't want to spend the time making it, nice and warm and fuzzy. So I'm just going to like throw it in and have it reword it for me. Right. So it
Mhm.
really does help immensely. And I would love for nonprofits to start using these kind of tools in a meaningful way, in a way that will help them get further ahead, to get more support, to get more traction, to get more people understanding what they do, who they do it for, and how they help.
Yeah. I mentioned the buyer's life cycle. One of the tools that we have built enables you to put in all of your organization and product data, then run the script against it to create ideas. So it spits out like 10 ideas per stage of that life cycle. Now, some of those ideas you may not like very much, but it created 10 new, potentially fresh ideas for you to consider. And go through them and decide which ones seem like they're the most viable, and run those as experiments that you do in your organization. The idea, or the benefit, is that you've created a whole bunch of stuff in one kind of small lift that you can then sort through and discard or try as you see fit. And then you can change things up just a little bit and run it again and come up with 10 more, for example. That's where I think the benefit comes, is that understanding that it's not necessarily going to produce 100% amazing stuff all the time, but being able to create a starting point from which you can then iterate, or make decisions about whether or not you want to try this, or modify it slightly to better fit your tone, or to better fit your approach to your nonprofit. Those are the things that I think GPT really does help with quite a bit.
Yeah, early on you were talking about personas, and
Mhm.
it's really important, um, as a business. Like you have a business, I've got a business. As nonprofits, they need first off, nonprofits, you need to run as if you're a business. You need to be really clear what are your goals, your targets, etc., etc. One of those things you really need to be clear on that you touched on was personas,
Mhm.
right? Who is it that you're trying to reach out to? There's if you have programs and services you offer, who is the typical or ideal person that is maybe 50% or 40% of the people coming through the program or service you're offering. What is their persona, right? And with
Mhm.
personas we're talking about geographics, pretty self-explanatory, demographics, sex, age, education, financials, that kind of stuff. And then there's something called psychographics. If you don't know what psychographics are, I have a podcast episode about that. Just go to Nonprofit Digital Success podcast, no, nonprofitdigitalsuccess.com, and search for psychographics. I think it's episode 16. If my memory's working right, I think it's episode 16. But what are psychographics? What is it that these people are motivated by? What is it that they care about? Where do they spend their time? Where do they hang out? And if you can get clear as a nonprofit with the psychographics of your ideal person that's using your program, your ideal donor, your ideal volunteer, your ideal employee, then you can target them. I mean, that sounds really harsh, right? But you can go after them, you can market to them, you can put messages out wherever they hang out, wherever they spend their time. And if you understand why they're coming to you, why they're drawn to you as an organization, create content around that, because that's what's going to drive them into you, right?
Yeah.
And
What do they
leveraging some
what do they
tools.
feel? What are they scared of? What keeps them up at night? If you can create content that speaks to them in the language and terms that they use around those challenges that they're facing, and demonstrate empathy and authority, your ability to help them, overcome this feeling of isolation. Well, we have a volunteer program for you that's going to put you in the field with 30 other people of a similar demographic, and you guys are going to have fun building trails for a day, or whatever the thing may be. That's the language that creating a persona will help you with, and help you show up most effectively when those people show up. So, and there's a lot of fear around persona creation. A lot of like, it's really fear of missing out. Well, what happens if someone who's outside of that persona shows up? As long as you're not niching down too hard on a particular persona, people will ask, oh, well, do you take people in their 50s? Yes, we do. We would love to have you show up at our event, even if a lot of your language is geared toward a younger audience, because those are the primary people that are going to resonate with your brand, in your organization. Getting more of the right people is super super effective.
Absolutely. And producing content, I guess, like a pro tip around this is your art. Everybody, every organization, they should have a blog or an updates or something like that on your website where you can be publishing this content, and it's not necessarily news releases or press releases or that type of thing.
Mm.
And as part of that content, what's going to get you more traffic is if you're naming the articles, if your titles are the questions that people are asking, right? Because people are going to Google. You've probably done this, Stu. People
Mhm.
watching this or listening to this, right? They've probably gone and you go to Google and you just type in like whatever your question is, right? Like, I don't know. I don't, my mind just totally went blank on me there, but they're typing in the question, right? And if you take a look at your analytics, if you take a look at any of the data around your website, you're going to see trends in terms of what people are looking for. If you look at your website, just like personas, where you want to kind of cover like 40-50% of your ideal whoever, with your analytics, I would bet, I would put money on this. If anybody wants to take me up on this, I would put money on this, that most of your website traffic, at least 70 to 80% of your website traffic, is probably only going to like a dozen pages on your site from Google, from search.
Yeah.
What are those pages? What are some questions around those pages? Do you have somebody that answers the phone at like a reception desk or something like that? The person that handles your info at email, your contact at email, those, what questions are people asking there, right? And
Yeah.
create content around that.
Yeah. Search Console is a fantastic tool that Google allows you to hook your site into, and it can be actually even more effective than analytics in creating opportunities to understand where Google thinks your site should be displayed, and where you are potentially missing opportunities. So if you look at your impressions, that's how many times your site has been presented to an audience over some period of time. And then you look at your clicks against those impressions. A lot of times, if you have a keyword or a key term that you show up really well for in impressions, but with a poor click through rate, that's a really great opportunity to create some content or to optimize a page to really, really stand out for that particular key phrase search. In the impressions information, you can also dig out some of those questions, like what David was just talking about, where you are looking for what is X, how do I X, how much does X cost, those types of things. Um, how do I solve these problems? And those then become really ripe opportunities to create content, whether that's a blog post or a landing page or some sort of material that answers those questions, because those are people out there. That's a real buyer's intent type of search. And again, using buying language in the nonprofit space, just think about it as in terms of potential donor opportunities or potential volunteer opportunities, et cetera. But really kind of teasing out some of those questions. I like to think of content as every piece of content. So every blog post, every video, every podcast episode, every piece of material that you enable people to access online is essentially a new door opening up to your organization. So if you think of your organization as a brick and mortar and you have a front door, that's great. People can walk through that front door. If you can open up 3,000 different doors that get access to your organization through different content that you've created, that just makes it that much easier for people to show up and engage with your organization.
To take that one step further, if you've opened up these 3,000 doors and you get one person to make a donation, that is $5 more than you had before. That is $5,000 more than you had, whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
That's more people that you've connected with, more lives that you may have potentially had a positive impact on, right? And that's really why nonprofits are around anyways. That's ultimately why they were founded.
Yeah. You can do this much more good by creating just a little bit more opportunity. There are a variety of additional benefits. It's not just the single door that you've now opened up. The single door of 3,000. It is the cumulative number of doors that a lot of the search engines actually look at as well. So when you create content consistently, which is again what Chat GPT and AI and these tools like Online Brand Manager can help you with, when you're creating content on a regular basis and being consistent and intentional about the materials that you're creating, it elevates all of those doors in the mind of Google. So your domain authority goes up. Google just starts to make those doors bigger. Maybe they started out as a very tiny little door, and now that your domain authority has risen, you're now looking at a great big door that people can walk through. So, so there are lots of kind of, I guess, holdover benefits. Maybe that's not the right terminology, but additional benefits to creating material on a regular basis. And that's where I think that if you can get creative and you can get committed to creating that content and thoughtful about how you ideate around that material and just help yourself get better at producing opportunities for people to find you, you'll get found a lot more effectively.
We know from our experience at Wow Digital, when we run our clients through our content workshop, going from publishing something, I don't know, like every 2 months to monthly, and then from monthly to weekly, we've been able to get over 510% increase in unique organic traffic by going to weekly publishing of content. Not even big articles. We're talking like 500-600 words. So nothing
Mm-hmm.
major, right? But the benefits are huge. The old adage, content is king, it's very much true. We've essentially proven that in Google's algorithm, if you're producing content on a regular, frequent, consistent basis, they are going to start ranking you higher because they see you as somebody that cares about your website. right? They see you. So imagine if you had 10,000 visits a month to your site, and then you started getting 50,000 visits a month. Right? Like what is that going to do for you as an organization? That's huge.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
And,
it's not instant, right? It takes
yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah. I think it takes time. It takes a little bit of commitment. Um, Getting over the fear of getting everything right is important because when you first start out, you're not going to have a huge audience. So don't worry so much about how you show up. I remember when I first started doing videos, I was real bad at it. Probably still am not great, but I got better
Okay. You're okay.
as I committed to it. And the funny thing is that no one's going to see those first videos, at least in the moment. Sure, once you get popular, people might go back and watch those and be like, oh wow, he's this guy's gotten a lot better than he was at the start. But we've published over 500 blog posts probably over the years, and I would say that all of them are still on the site. Some of them are probably at this point, quote unquote wrong, because things have changed. There are certainly some blog posts about technologies that no longer exist. However, just in the practice of doing it, it's gotten easier. I also would encourage everyone to set smart goals on their production. If you're not doing anything now, don't don't commit yourself or try to commit yourself to writing 8 blog posts a week or something like that. You might get there at some point, but let's start slowly. Get to 1 or 2 a month. And once you're getting good at that, it becomes easier to jump to 2 to 4 a month. Once you're at 2 to 4 a month, maybe you go to 2 a week and get to that point. But really set yourself up for success so that when you can feel the benefits of crossing those finish lines, and also it just keeps you engaged with that process. So I would say start slowly, commit to it, and just get good at hitting your numbers and then increase them. But yeah, just first step is setting that intention and then get started. Worry a little bit less about the perfection of it. Done is vastly better than perfect. In fact, I would argue that there is no such thing as perfect. So you can always keep tweaking things forever. But just getting it out there and getting it out in the public consciousness is key.
Yeah. So one of the things that you mentioned was SMART. So I just want to talk about that for a quick sec. SMART goals, they're specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely, right? So if perfect example, all right, I want to produce videos. Cool. How many videos a week do you want to produce, or a month, or a quarter, or a year, right? How much time can you put into it, right? So yeah, okay, I want to spend 2 hours this week on producing 3 videos. Great. That is an awesome example of a SMART goal. You don't need much
Mm-hmm.
more detail than that, right? You're going to produce a video, you're going to do 3 of them, and you're going to spend 2 hours.
Yep.
Perfect,
Yep.
right?
It's
And
specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. So you nailed all of those.
right, so like the best thing you can do is actually make a plan, like Stu said. Write it down, put it on a post-it note, put it on the bottom of your screen, email it to yourself, put it in your calendar, whatever you got to do, right? Just go and do it, and just keep moving forward on it. Okay, maybe you only produced 1 video this week, so you didn't hit your goal. Reset your SMART goal for next week and just make it happen, right? One step after another, and that's what's going to get you there.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you mentioned that you addressed the challenges of not attaining your goals, because we tend to think of, let's say I want to do 4 videos in a month and I only do 3. Our tendency is to look at that and be like, oh, I only got 3 out of 4. That's a C at best. Well, how many were you producing before? Either 0 or 5 or 2 maybe. So you made progress. Reset and either say, okay, maybe 3 is the realistic goal until we can get good at getting 3. And so the following month, instead of saying 4, just throttle it back to 3. then you probably are hitting 3. But 75% is way better than 0%. And so if you find yourself up against that idea of doing something or doing nothing, always do something. And even if it was less than you expected, you know, a lot of times people get real nervous about revenue goals. For example, like, oh, we need to hit $50,000, and oh, we only made it to 40,000. It's like, well, that's $40,000. That's not zero. And so, don't beat yourself up about that. Just be, retool it and come up with a SMART goal.
Amazing. Love it, Stu. Wicked conversation. Great time. Onlinebrandmanager.com, wowdigital.com. Go check Stu's platform out. Come visit us if you need any help, support. We're here to help you. That's why we're here. Until
Thanks
next
for having
time.
me on the show.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Appreciate it, Stu. And until next time, keep on being successful.
Yeah. Bye, everybody.
Have a good one.